So a few weeks ago, we covered this crazy story about Nexon scamming its players for well over a decade. And I'm not just talking about them making MMOs with cash
Yeah, they've already been doing that.
shops and microtransactions. No, we all knew that was happening, and it's pretty par for the course in the
I've seen
genre.
this one.
What they were doing was way worse. After a multi-year investigation, the Korean Fair Trade Commission announced that they found Nexon guilty of unfair rate manipulation for cash shop items in MapleStory. In that game, they sell these things called cubes. These are essentially loot boxes that grant power upgrades. You buy a cube, roll the dice, and are given a random reward depending on which cubes you purchased. This can include passive stat boost and gear upgrades. The odds of getting any particular outcome from a cube were published by Nexon a few years ago, as has become industry standard for pretty much any game that sells loot.
Because it's mandatory, because they have to do it. I think it's like an EU regulation that you have to actually publish what the drop rates are. So I don't want you guys to go and be like, oh, well, the companies are doing this because they care about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They're just following the law. The only reason this exists for percentages is because of the law. In Chinese, yeah, there it is.
Boxes. Nowadays, companies will just tell you like what the percent chance you have of getting whatever it is you're looking for when you purchase some sort of a loot box. The problem in this circumstance, though, was that the actual odds were not only not as published, they were also regularly being manipulated, and the rarest, most highly coveted outcomes, the thing that pretty much everyone buying cubes was hoping to get, that was literally impossible to acquire. Your odds were actually zero. So the investigation...
What? Nexon manipulated both probabilities. First, they blocked users to obtain the best ideal additional ability, so the preferred option is never achievable. Second, they slowly lowered the probability of promotion.
Revealed that after Nexon began selling cubes, they progressively lowered the probability of getting an item.
This is going to sound horrible, but I literally don't give a fuck about this. And I think that if you spend money on games like this, you're a fucking idiot, and I don't care if they take advantage of you. Now, obviously, it should still be against the law, and they shouldn't be able to do it. Like, yeah. But do I genuinely feel bad for them? No, I don't. You get what you fucking deserve.
And they blocked users from ever obtaining the most ideal stat boost combination. That most powerful role that players were wanting was never achievable. On top of doing this rate manipulation, they on several occasions made false public statements that no such changes were occurring, while those changes were in fact actively occurring.
How do
the
people know that?
investigation also revealed, while all of this was taking place, that Nexon had many back and forth conversations via internal emails about whether or not the company should disclose this information, but ultimately they decided against it because
they shouldn't do it, because if you disclose it, then people would be less likely to give you money. So you don't want to tell them, so they give you more money.
Of course they did. In the end, from the time MapleStory cubes were first made available for purchase in 2010 to when this investigation took place in 2021, Nexon had made roughly $420 million from...
I really need to make one of these games, guys.
Cube sales alone, and as punishment from what was discovered, the Korean FTC fined Nexon $9 million, a measly...
Wait, so they made $420 million and they got fined $9 million? That sounds like a win to me.
2% tax on their earnings. Surely this is going to stop them from ever doing it again. Now, that story alone is crazy, but buried in there was something that I find even more concerning for the entire loot genre, for the entire MMO genre. When making all this information public, the Korean FTC released many documents and details found during its discovery process, part of which was the reveal of a patent that Nexon holds in Korea pertaining to variable rewards based on player activity. Or in other words...
Well, yeah, they want... Yeah, of course this is a good idea. They should absolutely do this. It manipulates people into spending more money. It's common sense, yeah.
It's the idea of changing the rate of item drops or the rewards gained from loot boxes based on the individual player. Now, I've always been aware that this sort of thing could exist and may be happening.
Well, you want to have it to where it's able to, like, through like AI, machine learning, or an algorithm, figure out how to milk the person out of the most money. So, like, how do you do that? Well, the way you do that is you figure out a way to... like program and like, you know, based off of their previous spending, like habits, you know, it's like they spend this much money at a time. So you want to give them a win. Like, let's say they spend $100, give them a win at $107. So they have to spend just a little bit more money, because that's how you maximize the amount of money that you get out of somebody, is you figure out their psychology and then you can take advantage of it.
Games that I play, but seeing actual confirmation in writing of a company officially registering their ability and intention to do so, man, as a fan of MMOs, as a fan of loot games, as a fan of ARPGs, I absolutely do not love the idea that this could be happening in the games that I'm playing today, because Nexon, they might hold the patent for this in Korea, but they don't across the entire world, and that's where the concern comes in.
There it is.
Now, what exactly am I talking about? Well, let's take a look. The patent for dynamic rates includes the following: if a lot of user activity, decrease rates. Increase rates if users have low activity.
That way you get more people to do it. So as they tell each other, they're like, oh, well, you should do that.
Rates based on player location. If gacha items exceed expected number or set amount, decrease rates. Change rates based on number of friends on buddy list. Change rates based on buddy list stats.
Yeah, because like you logically want to give higher rates to people that have lots of friends, because then they'll tell all of their friends to do it. But if you have somebody that has no friends, it's easier to take advantage of them because they're not going to tell other people about it. I think it was the other way around. No, I don't think so. It says change rates.
Change rates for certain gacha items above some rarity. Change rates based on users' current items. So some of these
like, I'll give you an example in like Honkai Star Rail. Like, you know how if you play the game, you can have like your friends list and then people can put like their big characters. So, like, if you have a lot of people on your friends list, you want people to see that, oh, yeah, you actually can get the new character. This person already has it. Holy shit, they have it. So it's a form of advertising.
Really that bad. And in fact, I would say there's parts of this that are totally normal and expected from MMOs, but a lot of them are pretty nefarious, especially the ones that pertain to items being purchased from the cash shop. Let's consider the implications here, starting with the most benign. So number 3, that says change rates based on player location. This one's actually totally normal, like having the rates of item drops change based on your location in game. That happens in most MMOs, as far as I'm concerned. Here we would be talking about things like loot tables that are tied to certain areas. So for example, in the Elder Scrolls Online, there are item sets that will only drop when you are in a particular zone.
This is also why, like, for example, in BDO, they do announcements whenever somebody hits a really high level. And they do it in Lost Ark too. Like, whenever like I got a 25 on my weapon, like it did like a server announcement. Oh yeah, I just got this.
Referred to as overland sets. So when you're out farming in Rivenspire, you've got like a 1% chance or something of getting a piece of the necropotent set from any of the mobs that you kill. But as soon as you leave that zone, that rate drops to 0. You will never get it outside of the zone. Or you've got the items that will only drop in particular dungeons or raids. And we're not just talking boss loot, but dungeon-wide loot tables. So for example, in World of Warcraft, you're only going to get set pieces of the Scarlet Mail set while farming mobs in the Scarlet Monastery. So this one makes sense, not at all surprising. It's pretty much what I expect. It's what a lot of MMOs do. But that, of course, is just one interpretation of that line, because the other one could be not that it refers to adjust rates based on player location in game, but that it adjusts rates based on player location in the real world. So depending on where you are in the world, what region you are, where you're...
Yeah, it's like if you are... If you're in some shitty country and they know you don't have as much money, like, yeah, they'll give you a little bit of a bonus. But, like, if you have an IP address that's from San Francisco, well, like, bro, like, this guy probably makes over 100K a year. Like, yeah, he can spend more money. Like, yeah, cut the rate in half. Fuck him. Yeah, no, it makes sense.
IP address pings you at, they will then make adjustments to the rates. And of course, this would likely be referring to things like, depending on the country that you're located and the particular variation of the game that they want you to have, they will adjust the drop rates, the rates that you acquire currency, the rates that you acquire resources, how that may or may not be tied into changes into the progression depending on the part of the world that you're in, or maybe changes.
Because I bet that would probably work really well. Like, if you could have it to where, like, you can tell where a person's IP address is, and then you can cross-reference their IP address for the average income in that area, and then you could contextualize that around their spending habits, you could probably get people to spend more money by creating like an actuarial table about how to like maximize manipulating them. I think this could really work. This is a good idea. That's smart.
Cash shop, so they might want to incentivize
you. Yeah, guys, you have to VPN to You have to VPN to like fucking Alabama or something like that. VPN to Africa.
Purchases by reducing your rates in certain regions and not in other regions. That
Problem
is the
solved.
other more malicious variation and interpretation of this line of adjusting rates based on player location. But then we move on to checking numbers 1 and 2. Number 1 says if a lot of user activity decrease rates and the ability to increase rates for users with low activity. Now, these are pretty self-explanatory, but again, think of the implications. So if you play a game a lot, your odds of getting higher rarity items could then be decreased by the developer. Or
because they know you're not going to quit. And like, I always thought this was kind of some of the logic that Blizzard used with like making really shitty systems, is that they knew players weren't going to quit. So they just said, fuck it. We're going to make them farm as much as they possibly can.
You take a break, when you return, your rates might get bumped up, meaning you're more likely
because like you think about it in an abstract. Let me see if I can pull up what was said before. Isn't this what they do in WoW? Where whenever everybody is playing the system, it's bad, and then whenever people stop playing it, they make it better? That's basically what they do in WoW right now.
Get better loot. And I get why a developer would want to use a system like this. So if you've got someone, for example, who stops playing your game for some extended period of time, when they return, you want to give them incentive to stick around. So yeah, why not shower them with legendaries, drop a best in slot stat roll on some items that they get, make them feel really good so they want to keep on playing.
Exactly.
And hey, in that circumstance, if you are that player, that sounds pretty great, right? But boy, does it suck for anyone actively playing the game, because the flip side...
Did you remember whenever, I think it was Activision, patented a software that allowed players to, that decreased and increased the, what do you call it? The aim assist based off of how well a player was doing. So, like, if a player was having really good games, it would make the aim assist worse, so they would have worse games. And if a player was having really bad games, it would make the aim assist better, so they would be better. Yeah. Skill-based aim assist. This is a whole new world we're in, gentlemen.
This coin is that the longer you play, they could potentially make it less likely that you get good items, literally punishing the most dedicated people playing the game. This would also be an effective way for a developer to pad out playtimes, for example. Like when you see someone who is clearly dedicated, they're playing the game every single day for multiple hours, why not?
Yeah, you can take advantage of them.
Dial back their rewards just a little bit, and they may very well end up playing for longer. That is, if they don't just quit out of frustration. And finding that balance would be the key, right? And maybe that explains...
Remember what I was saying before about how Honkai Star Rail and Genshin, they are punishing the Genshin players and then rewarding the Honkai Star Rail players, so they can figure out the perfect middle ground for how to extract the most amount of money for Zenless Zone Zero? And so they're using like A/B testing. So they're like, okay, for this anniversary, we'll give them a 5-star. And for this anniversary, we'll give them 3 pulls. Okay, well, which one caused player behavior to change in this way? Okay, so then for the new game, what we'll do is we'll do this instead, right? And so, yeah, Genshin players are basically the torture group, and then Star Rail players are the reward group. That's just the way it is.
Is why I got a nearly perfectly rolled bow on my Falconer like 10 hours into playing Last Epoch. But in the 40 hours that I played since, every other one that's dropped has sucked, and I've only found a single version of this bow with any legendary potential, and it had nearly the worst possible stat rolls it could have. Maybe if I stop playing for a few weeks, I'll finally get the good drops that I'm looking for when I return. Am I assuming that's happening in Last Epoch? No, not necessarily. I assume it's probably just part of the RNG experience, but now we've got that seed of doubt, knowing that it's possible these rates could be manipulated.
He's making a very good point about this, and I think he's totally right. What he's saying is that as soon as you see the man behind the machine, you can never play the game with the same type of authenticity. And I'll give you a really good example of how this is true that everybody probably understands if you've played one of these games. Do you remember what happened whenever, like, in PUBG, there were all these Chinese hackers? And every time you got killed by a bad player, you never thought to yourself, wow, that person was really good. You assumed that they were cheating, and then Warzone had the same thing happen. So, like, once the integrity of the game is damaged, it's very hard to get that back. Tarkov, yeah, there you go. And so, like, now people no longer are thinking, oh, well, like I just need to play better. They're thinking, oh, I just got beat by a cheater.
Based on player playtime. We've got Nexon with an active patent for that exact thing in Korea. Could other developers be doing it in other games and other parts of the world that are being made? I mean, it's possible. We can't say it's not possible because clearly we know people can do it. It's within the realm of possibility. And this is where things get a little tricky, right? Because obviously this could all just be chalked up to RNG. Me not getting a great bow for my falconer in 40 hours. It could just be random luck of the draw. It is probably just random luck of the draw. I'm not a conspiracy theorist here, but we have to talk about the possibilities. And that's where the issue lies. Loot in these games and MMOs and ARPGs and looter shooters, it is random by design. You get random drops with random stats and affix rolls adjusted by the in-game circumstances that you're partaking in. Like,
it's possible. Yeah, of course it's possible. I mean, anybody could have assumed that's possible. I mean, that's why, for example, so like here's another way that like this is applied and has been applied is the Legion Legendary bad luck protection. Is that if you had bad luck protection, you would get a legendary more often. That is effectively just another manifestation of this exact system. Because, like, I had this happen, too. I remember I played in PoE, and it was in the Lake of Calandra League, and I got a ring, and it had, like, 60 of 2 resists, and it had 150-something health. And I got it at, like, level 62. It was fucking insane. It was the most insane ring. Now, does that mean that the game is like open? And I saw a guy drop a Mirror of Calandra in like Act 7 or Act 6 or something like that. It was bullshit. Yeah, I know. I mean, sometimes it's just RNG.
You're going to get better rewards and they're going to occur more frequently as your level gets higher, as you push into harder content and the types of content that you're doing. Some combination and variation of all of these things will affect the loot drops that you're getting. It's part of the genre. Randomness has always been in these games. It is built in. But knowing that there could also then be this extra added layer where a developer is punishing you, not based on the content that you're doing.
What game is that? That's Once Human.
The difficulty of the content, the known mechanics that are within the game, but just based on your frequency of playtime, that's not really great. I mean, I guess it's not bad for the person who takes a break and then gets better loot when they return.
It sucks dick. It absolutely sucks massive dick. There's no other way around it. It's literal garbage. There's not even a question about this. It's terrible design. It's completely antithetical to what video games are supposed to be about. It is just punishing people for working hard. It creates a reward loop around not putting effort into the game. It's literal garbage. It's poison for video games. And if video games adopt this, then people will only be trained to not care about them. So yes, no, obviously I'm talking about it as like a joke, as like, haha, this is smart. This is what they should do instead because it would manipulate people and cause people to spend more money, which is true. However, do I agree with this? No, it's fucking awful. This is terrible. Like if I knew a game had something like this, like World of Warcraft tried doing something like this actually whenever the game was going to come out, because you know how they had rested experience, they were going to have the opposite, which was going to be like you would get tired and then you get experience less frequently. And Blizzard actually went back on that idea in 2004 because they knew that having a negative reward structure for playing the game too much would in fact discourage people from enjoying the game. Final Fantasy had that, yeah, big mistake, and now it doesn't. It's extremely immoral and anti-consumer. Yes, it is.
It is pretty shit for the users who are playing daily and then are being rewarded with worse odds, with worse loot drops. True. And just knowing that developers could be doing this, yeah, that's I mean, it kind of sucks the wind out of the sails, right? It's sort of like when you get these games that have built-in RMT. So if I'm just farming for gold and resources within a game, most of the time...
Any game that you can buy gold in, if you're farming gold, you're a cuck.
I'm under the assumption that this is just part of the game playing experience. Everything is good. I will farm gold for hours so long as the game is mechanically satisfying and interesting and I'm enjoying the experience and I'm working towards some sort of a set goal. That's just part of playing the game. But yeah, the second a game has officially supported built-in RNG...
I wonder who which game he's talking about. I mean, it could be any of them, right? I mean, who knows?
That veil gets lifted a bit. Like when I can see, say it costs for 1,000 gold, you can get that for $10, but it takes 5 hours of grinding in game to farm 1,000 gold. At that point, I just kind of feel like I'm working for $2 an hour. I don't.
You are. That's exactly right. And that is the most corrosive thing about having a dollar value for resources in game, is that it creates a frame of reference that everybody judges their own activity off of. So like you are no longer farming for 20,000 gold an hour, you're farming for $2 an hour. Because now everything else is based off of that frame of reference. And an extreme example of that is WoW retail. Like everything is based off of the WoW token. It's like the fucking Federal Reserve. Like that's what everybody decides their money is on, right? Everybody decides things are worth, right? It's based off of the price of a WoW token. It's insane.
Love it. And the similarity between these two things here is that it's just really demotivating. The same as farming gold for $2 an hour in games that have RMT, or knowing that the game could, the longer
like if I wasn't a streamer, or like I didn't have disposable income to spend on a game, like I'll be honest, I would not even do this. Like if I was a billionaire, I would not spend money on a game unless I was doing it for stream content, because I would feel stupid. It's the same reason why I don't go to Starbucks. I would feel stupid spending $7 for a thing of coffee. It's like a humiliation ritual by doing it. It's like, okay, I'm going to give you $7 and you're going to give me water. Okay, I'm stupid. You see what I'm saying? Like I would feel stupid just doing it. Didn't you spend a lot on Immortal? Yeah, and I made a ton of money off of the YouTube videos. Absolutely. But what I'm saying is that, and the streams too, actually. I was still on my main channel. If I wasn't a streamer, I wouldn't be spending any money on these games. That's my point.
Playing, reduce the odds of you getting
regardless
good gear,
of how much money
that
I
can
had.
sure really ruin the experience. And then we've got numbers 5, 6, and 8, which are sort of along these same lines. Change rates based on the number of friends on your buddy list.
This
change
is just
rates based on your buddy list
smart.
stats, or change rates based on the user's current items. These kind of mesh together and follow the same general idea as above. They're making changes just based on things pertaining to you, but not based on the game's built-in mechanics. It's so like too many people on your friends list, sorry, you're going to start getting worse loot. If you
It's the opposite. It's going to be that more people on your friends list, you're going to get better loot because you have the higher potential to advertise that positive interaction with more people.
really bad loot, on the plus side, we're going to start boosting you up. When it comes
so
to
like if you don't have any friends, you also don't have any 5 stars. You're a fucking loser. And so what do losers do? Well, losers lose.
positive implications of this, were all gravy, but it's the other side that just things get a little scary. And the absolute worst stuff, though, really, is the dynamic rates as they pertain to cash shop items. So that's number 4 and 7. If gacha items exceed expected number or set amount, decrease rates, and also changes.
I love how these companies, like, isn't this like, bro, no, you're not going to convince people about digital exclusivity. I'm sorry. Digital exclusivity is like a fucking oxymoron. No, digital exclusivity. Digital, means you can copy it infinitely. There's no actual exclusivity for this. This is why NFTs died. How do they not understand this?
Rates for certain gacha items above some rarity. That one's pretty explicit. I assume that's happening. But number 4, boy, if you're opening a ton of loot boxes and you get a few good items in a row, hey, guess what? They're going to nerf your rates, which means if you buy more boxes, you should expect to get garbage for a while. Now, if the implementation of this one is as it sounds, is as I assume it is, I mean, that should be illegal, right? Like, I get it. It's kind of similar to gambling. Sure, in gambling, you've got low odds for every single pull of the slot machine, but sometimes you win, and that's great. But I assume it is super illegal and against gambling laws to decrease the rates of someone once they win. I mean, that sounds illegal, but legality or...
I mean, I don't know if it is or not. I mean, like, I'll tell you this, that it probably is a good system. And you can definitely... It is, yeah. I mean, like, I don't know, guys. You overestimate people. Digital exclusive gets people for sure. I see people way too often, sad to say. Well, what I'm saying is, like, people are not going to accept the idea that a digital item will become more expensive because more people are making purchases of it. Like, of course, like, people care about rare items, like rare CSGO skins. But, like, the difference is that a rare CSGO skin, the value of that is set by it's set by a market. It's not set by the seller. Or it is, but it's not. Like, what I'm saying is that the person who created the object is not setting the value.
I'm not here to really argue about it. That it's pretty crappy. If a game that you're playing has this mechanic, you sure are going to want to know about it so that you don't go spending money after getting a good item to be almost guaranteed to get worse loot for some.
Somebody said in chat, I saw this, the rates are backwards for friends lists. They did studies where people with more friends stick around and are more addicted, so then they get the lower drop rate. Man, you know what? That logic tracks, doesn't it? Holy fuck, maybe you're right. Holy fuck.
Spending money after getting a good item to be almost guaranteed to get worse loot for some extended period of time. I mean, hey, if you needed any more reason to avoid spending money on loot boxes and gacha items, knowing that there's a chance that if you win some, you're guaranteed worse odds going forward, that sounds like as good of a reason as any. This whole thing is really complicated and frustrating because these games, as I said earlier, they've always had a lot of randomness involved. It's part of their nature. Random loot, random stats doled out at random intervals. This is part of the gameplay loop. It is a big part of the reason why a lot of us play. The game has to feel fun and be satisfying to play, but then the draw of that loot is what keeps you playing. You keep pushing that button knowing that good stuff will come eventually. You just don't know when. I mean, it's...
If I knew that this was in a game, I would just not play the game. Like this kind of content, all it does is it trains a person like me to just no longer be interested in it.
An entire genre of games built on variable rewards. That's the ongoing motivation. I just think what's so frustrating here with this story is just what we don't know. We've got all of these different loot games, which are some of my favorite genres, MMOs, ARPGs, looter shooters, and we simply don't know how many games, which games, what combination of these are utilizing these dynamic variable rewards based on player activity. Like
this is what people always say with like streamer loot too. Like this is, and it's a conspiracy, right? It's not like streamers get better loot. Like the companies are like watching a streamer and they're like, give them the 5-star. Let's get these fucking plebs. Let's get them spending all their money. Like I don't think the companies are really doing that, right? I don't think so. I wish they would, but I don't think that they are. Companies make too much money trying to manipulate gamers instead of just doing the obvious big money makers and then spending the rest of the resources making the games good. Yeah, this is the thing, is they're patenting all of these different ways to make the game bad. Like, why don't you just patent a way to, like, make AI NPCs interact with the environment better? Like, it's like all of the innovation is happening in terms of how to make money, and none of it's about the actual game. You can request access for Vindictus game now? Yeah, I'm going to do that in just a minute after I finish.
Examples that we've outlined here, some combination of them could be
By the way, Vindictus is a Korean-made game by Nexon. So, we might be getting a first, like fucking front row seat at this for a new game.
In a few games, could be used in a lot of games, or could be used in most of the games in the genre. That's what's frustrating. We just don't know, and we really can't know. I guess on the plus side, you might get rewarded when you're first starting out, when you have bad gear, if you don't have a lot of friends on your friends list, or when you return from taking a break. And like I said, in those circumstances, when implemented in that way, these dynamic variable rewards are fine. They're nice even. They're welcome. But the negative side is that possibility that if you play a lot, you're punished with worse odds and will be getting worse loot. Or if you fancy yourself spending money on loot boxes and gacha items, the idea that every time you pull big, the next X amount of dollars you spend are almost going to be thrown out the window because they are reducing your chance of getting anything good from that point forward, which is a major yikes. This whole thing really makes me think
this is something that can only work in the shadows. Like, they can't tell you that they're doing this. That this has to work as like a dark pattern type thing, right? It has to, but if it works in I think it'd be good.
We should demand way more transparency as to how drop rates are calculated in a lot of these games and how or when those drop rates can change. This matters a whole lot less when it comes to just like what loot am I getting as a player and how often am I getting loot. It is frustrating in that it kind of, it certainly impacts like the motivation to keep grinding. If you know for sure that a game is using a system like this, punishing you for the more often you play, I imagine that's going to kill the desire for a lot of people to keep on playing. But that's just the thing. Unless something happens that forces developers to share that information.
Well, also, like, players respond to rewards. Like, people respond to reinforcement. So if you create a reinforcement loop around not playing the game, then people will not play the game. Duh.
Don't know. We probably won't know unless there's some big investigation by someone like the Korean Federal Trade Commission when what they did with Nexon. We won't know. We won't know what games are using these systems and how many of them they're using. But yeah, it doesn't matter as much for loot rewarded from playing the game, but I certainly feel it's a pretty big deal when it pertains to items purchased from the cash shop. This idea that your rates will change depending on if you score big or something when you're buying loot boxes. I don't know about the legality, but yeah, sounds pretty garbage. I think at the very least, this should give you some pause when you consider playing any game developed by Nexon, MapleStory, Vindictus.
Speaking of Vindictus, we are beginning the download. So we're gonna see this firsthand. We're gonna look at it right there. We're gonna see what's really going on.
Or the upcoming game, The First Descendants, besides their history with the changing the rates of the cubes and making certain outcomes literally impossible, we know they have done this. It has been proven, and they were fine for doing so. There's a chance that that could also be...
I remember playing The First Descendant and thinking to myself, man, this game's going to be a lot worse whenever they make all these upgrade materials from the store.
Happening in their other games, but that stuff aside, this whole dynamic rate manipulation, we know Nexon has the patent for it in Korea, and now we know, if we weren't sure already in the past, that it is something that could very well be applied to other games that we play, other loot games. And if that is happening, I mean, I sure would love to know. Or maybe I wouldn't, because maybe that would just mean I wouldn't want to play games that are implementing systems along these lines. And
yeah, no, I would want to know so I could avoid them. I just wouldn't play them. Now, if the game was really fun, it's like maybe I would still play it. But I do feel like this is something that would eventually make me feel like my time is being wasted and I would quit playing.
And again, look, randomness, it is part of the genre. I just feel like there has to be an established baseline of understanding of where that randomness comes into play, how and when it changes. We get better loot drops when we push higher levels, when we push harder content, when we go into different types of content, when we farm in different zones, when we farm different dungeons. That is all an established understanding, and I think most of the player base goes into playing these games knowing that these things exist.
They scam the shit out of MapleStory users. Like, I'm sorry, guys, I'm just going to say it, but if you are still playing MapleStory, you are a dick eater. Just a dick eater. And so, I mean, like, is it okay to scam dick eaters? No, it's not. It's not that bad, you know? It's not really that bad. Like, I don't really feel that bad for him. I'm sorry. Why? It's not? Yeah. It's just like, I mean, what are you doing playing that fucking game, man?
It's really more so the punishing side of it. The punishing for frequency of playing.
Yeah,
the
that's
punishing
what's
for
bad.
how good your gear is. The punishing for the number of people on your friends list. If there are a lot of loot games using systems like that, don't love it. Absolutely do not love it. That's going to do it for today's video, though. Thank you, as always, for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.
I'm so glad that I watched this. I really am. I'll link you guys the video. This is amazing. Like, I want to see how far they're going to take it, man. I really do. Holy fucking shit. What's wrong with eating dick? I mean, there's nothing really wrong with it. I mean, people can play MapleStory if they want to, but, like, it doesn't take away from the fact that that's what it is. Vindictus playtest is available to download now. Yeah, I know that. I'm downloading it right now. And we're going to play it in just a few minutes. But, man, 2.5k people watching MapleStory right now? That's a lot of dicks. Man, that's a lot of dicks. But yeah, I didn't know about the drop rate increases because of friends lists. I think that's crazy. And I wonder if this game is going to do it too, because this game is called Once Human, and they were made... Is it a Korean developer or a Chinese developer? I don't remember. I think it's... I was Korean? Like, I don't remember. Fuck, am I dumb? Is it NetEase? Like, yeah, I don't remember. Is it Chinese? Chinese? Okay, so it's Chinese. Yeah, okay. So yeah, I played this one, and yeah, maybe they'll do it too. I mean, who the fuck knows? Massive difference? Yeah, but whenever I see the letters, like, I just know the Korean ones are the ones with the circles and shit. Like, that's just about it. Didn't you try this game before? Didn't I try this game before? You mean, didn't I play this game all the way to max level up every single item that I had, max rank every single weapon, clear all of the content, and do everything? Yeah, I played it. Just a bit, though. Like, I mean, just, you know, I probably only put like 250 hours into it. That was about it. Korean culture is so different about money. Yeah. So it's actually really funny you bring that up. I don't know if I told this story on the stream or not. So obviously I told you guys I had that problem with my back. And so I went to someone to try to help fix this. And so I'm talking to him and like he's saying, it's like, yeah, it's like I'm half Japanese and like my mom was like, you know, she said that like, you know, only eating rice is a bad thing. And I said, no fucking shit. Are you kidding me? And I told him that like Koreans called the people that couldn't spend money on video games rice eaters. And he's like, yeah. That's fucking how it is. Because apparently, if you're poor, you have to eat a bunch of rice. But if you're not, you can afford meat and stuff like that. And apparently it was like from, I guess in Japan, it was from like the war, right? But yeah, it's an actual fucking thing. Yeah, it's nuts. Yeah, rice without meat. There it is. Old cultural thing. Yeah, I had no idea, man. So yeah, I did play this game a lot. I'm looking forward to it. They're doing a second beta, and I'm excited to see what it's going to be. It was actually really astonishing to me how good this game was. I really liked this game a lot. There were a lot of things that were wrong with it, but there were a lot of things that were right with it too. I probably should have made a video talking more about it after I finished playing it. Yeah, it was really fun. Yeah, it was called Once Human. There's the video right there. Make sure to give it a like. This is a great video.